Hello and welcome to our 2021 Outlook for the Calgary Real Estate Market. In our video today, we're going to explore how we finished up in 2020 in Calgary real estate and what factors matter the most and what consumers can expect to observe in 2021. 2020 was a crazy year. 2021 is going to be very exciting. I can't wait to tell you all about it. Let's go. Okay, so before we take a close look at 2021, let's look at 2020 and how we finished up. And we actually have some good news coming out of that time in our market. The last 3 months of 2020, we had very good sales data. We had more sales and better months of supply ratios than we had during the same interval in 2019. So months of supply is a good barometer for how balanced a market is. If you've got more than 2.5 months worth of supply, you're considered to be in a buyer's market. If you've got less than 2.5 months worth of supply, you're considered to be in a seller's market. And in the last 3 months of 2020, we were about 3 months worth of supply, and this has been trending downwards most of the year in 2020, which means we're entering into a more balanced market environment in 2021 than we've typically seen. This is good news for Calgary real estate consumers. It's going to be more active, it's going to be more competitive, and we should see the continued trend of more sales activity, which is another factor that we saw at the end of 2019. More sales activity, more people entering the market. What helped more sales activity in the last quarter of 2020 was the lower interest rates, and that is something that we're going to consider or we're going to see more of as we head into 2021 as well. More on that here in just a minute. Another thing that we observed in 2020 was greater showing activity. And this is a graph here that is really interesting because it shows the amount of times that realtors' lock boxes were opened in 2020 relative to 2019. And you can see from the graph here that we started off really well. Even before the pandemic, there was more buyer interest within our marketplace than there was in 2019. Then we had the pandemic hit. We were told to socially distance ourselves. It was a lockdown time, so nobody was out there viewing houses. This dropped off a cliff. But then as restrictions started to come off and our market started to open back up again a little bit, you can see here we got right back to where we were before with more and more people looking at real estate than they had in 2019. A really good sign there. And this had carried on for most of the year here, which shows 2020 was shaping up to be a good year and then finished in a strong position as well, in spite of all of the pandemic effects and things that we had to deal with that. So strong market and strong look from that perspective. Okay, now if 2020 showed us anything, it is to expect the unexpected, and that is something else that I think we can all count on here in 2021, that there's going to be more craziness out there. We're going to see more weird headlines, more interesting stuff is going to happen. People are going to be observing things and asking themselves, well, what does this mean for me long term? But guess what? Calgary is street tough from this perspective because we are used to uncertainty. We are used to craziness now in many ways that other markets just aren't. Going back as far as 2013, we had the Calgary flood. Shortly after that, we had forest fires in northern Alberta. After that, our oil market and energy market was turned on its head due to the OPEC price wars. Shortly after that, we had new governments come into play that were going about energy policies way differently than the conservative governments previous to them. We had special interest groups being foreign or receiving funding from foreign entities that frustrated our pipeline approval process. All of this sort of stuff drove Albertans crazy, but we weathered the storm. And in good measure for 2020, we threw in a global pandemic just for into the mix, just for good measure. And look at this, we were able to make it out of that with our real estate market being healthy at the very end of it, showing lots of great signs heading into 2021. So despite all the craziness that we're seeing out in the world right now, I do feel strongly that we can handle it in Calgary, that we've got a robust, strong market here. Consumers are used to a little bit of uncertainty, so don't be put off by the headlines. I don't think that they're going to have as big an impact on your trading activity as they might seem when you first read them. Okay, so where can we expect the action to be in the Calgary market in 2021? Well, one of the areas that I think we'll see a lot of buyer interest is in the suburban single family segment. And the reason for this is you just get more value in the suburbs in Calgary, and Calgary has a plethora of wonderful suburban communities to live in. It's one of the great things about our market. We get knocked all the time for being spread out over so much landmass, but that is coming back to help us in a post-pandemic world because of all of the large suburban homes that we have. And this is where families want to live when they're being told, spend more time in your house, don't go out as much, socially distance yourself from everyone. Well, when you need to spend more time in your own property and you're spending more and more of your life staring at the paint on your own walls, you may want more paint to look at, and you can get that in the suburbs, and Calgary has a lot of them, and that has been where we've seen most of the market activity in 2020. I think that trend is going to continue as we head into 2021. We're going to see more people looking for that suburban lifestyle because they get more square footage, more room to move around, and that's where people are going to choose to spend their money. Now, the other side of that coin is where we're going to see less demand, and this is in the inner city of Calgary. By the same logic, when you're being told don't go into work, don't be in an office environment where you're going to be bumping shoulders with your coworkers. We want you to work from home, and Zoom culture and work from home culture. This came into effect in 2020 in a way that we've never seen before. And many people are saying that this trend could be here to stay. And if that's the case, well, there just isn't going to be as much of a need to be right on the scene as there was before. People aren't going to be as willing to spend higher dollar per square foot amounts to be near the downtown core as they might have been during the times prior to the pandemic and during the higher the energy booms in Calgary, when you wanted to be right downtown, you wanted to be close to that C train, you wanted to be able to walk to work. Well, I just don't think our city is going to work that way anymore, and so we're going to see less demand to be inner city than we had in the past. Okay, let's talk for a minute here about condos. Condos in Calgary have not done well over the last few years, and that's another trend that sadly is going to continue for condo owners. People want more square footage, they want more space, they need to be able to distance themselves and isolate, and I just don't feel that apartment style condominiums are in support of that kind of lifestyle. So if 2021 continues as a pandemic year where we're being asked to socially distance ourselves and wear masks all the time, fewer people are going to want to be in smaller condos where they're sharing elevators and common areas with people than we have traditionally seen. Calgary has been oversupplied from a condominium perspective, and we just haven't been able to shake that off since 2014. So I don't think that 2021 is going to see a return to demand for condominium living in Calgary. One more factor that I think is going to make that even worse is the insurance industry is now looking at all of the natural disasters that we've had and some of these insane expenses that we've seen, and they're saying to condominium owners, look, it's more expensive for us to fix up your buildings when something goes wrong. Because of that, you're going to need to pay higher insurance premiums for multifamily or condominium real estate. And the condominium corporations are in turn passing this expense on to owners by way of more condo fees. So when people are looking at, well, how far can my dollar take me? Condos are now a little bit less affordable than they were before. So I think we're going to see consumers make the decision to either move to perhaps a townhouse condominium product or perhaps a small single family product because their dollar just goes a little bit further there than it does for multifamily or apartment style condominiums. So if you're in a condominium now and you want to get out, now is the time to take your medicine and do it, because I don't feel that the condominium market is going to have a strong year in Calgary in 2021. Okay, so prediction time, and it's very dangerous making predictions in real estate because I did make one last year, and it was not that we were going to have to live through a global pandemic in 2020. But if I have to make one for 2021, because I am in the industry and this is my job to be able to help read the indicators and tell Calgary consumers what they can expect, when I look at how we ended 2020, which was in a good market position, months of supply creeping in, more sales activity. We're carrying a low interest rate environment into 2021 right now. Calgarians are used to market uncertainty, so I don't think we're going to be scared off through all of this geopolitical talk and noise that's out there in the same way that other markets might be. I don't feel that there is much downside risk in our market here in Calgary because we've been flat for so long here right now, as opposed to other markets where sellers have more equity to give up if there is uncertainty in those markets. So I do consider Calgary to have low downside risk. which when combined with our relative affordability, how cheap we are here relative to, say, the GTA or the lower mainland in Vancouver, it's just easier to buy real estate here. I feel like we are positioned to have a good year, and that 2021 might just be the year where this gray cloud that's been hovering over top of the Calgary market for the last 6 years starts to clear up and part ways a little bit. I expect us to carry a balanced market condition throughout most of the year here, and this may just be the year where we start to see a little bit of price growth and positive appreciation in our marketplace. Fingers crossed for that. I hope 2020 was okay to you. I hope 2021 is better for all of us. Thanks very much for watching, and happy investing.